progress.
Thank you. Welcome to the regular City Commission meeting of Wednesday, April the 19th, 2023. I hope everybody got all their stuff in yesterday so that the IRS isn't coming to see you for any reason whatsoever. Would you all join me? Well, first of all, let's have the roll call and then we'll do the flag salute.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
I am present. So would you please join me in the saluting of the flag of the United States? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. So we just finished having a work session, and so now we're into regular session, and we have some presentations this evening. And I'd like to go ahead and call forward our partners with Clackamas Fire District to come on up.
Were we going to do citizen comments? Did we have any citizen comments?
I thought presentations was before citizen comments. Well, I guess I could change it if I want to, can't I? I won't, but hang on just a second. All right, Betty Mum, come on up. Thank you so much for being here.
Good evening, Betty Mum, Oregon City. I am here tonight to speak to you on your last work session. And I just want to reiterate your sound system still sucks. It's hard to hear you guys.
We know.
But an MOU is an agreement between two or more parties that have a shared goal. Normally, it does not involve money. So you guys might think about dividing out the fees and the MOUs. So you have a meeting just on the MOUs and one on fees. And then have an expiration date and have people come back and report to you every year or two to see how things are going. So on the sports, on the page that was summary of cost for sports fields, the costs there were pretty ridiculous, charging for telephones, computers, gas, vehicle maintenance. I understand the purpose of that, and the city should truly charge for what is actually being done. If they actually have to drive there, they drive there anyways. But if they have to do extra mowing, or if they have to do, what was it? There was something about weeding the fence for the soccer people. I mean, if there's extras, then okay. But don't charge for regular weeding and that kind of thing that you do anyways. So for the Ermitinger House, the city spent a lot of money to restore that house. And I see that you have a 0.5 FTE person there. So I would be kind of interested to know what that entails. Because in my opinion, an FTE, a full one, is 40 hours a week. So a half, 0.5, would be 20 hours a week. So is there 20 hours a week of work there? I don't know.
Yes.
So then on to the neighborhood associations. So after they fill out their request to use a park and they get it for free, you could have them use it twice a year for free and not do 8 hours or something like that. It's just easier if you say neighborhood, you get 2 events you can have in the parks, ice cream social or whatever, after you fill out your paperwork. And then I was noticing that you're going to have an MOU with the neighborhood associations, which is new. So we've always had the neighborhoods.
Your time.
Neighborhoods have always been separate from the city. So are you going to go out to each neighborhood and do an MOU? Are you going to go to CIC, do an MOU?
Time. Thank you. We did decide at the last work session.
I thought it was 47 seconds.
Yeah, well, it went to 0 and now it's counting back up, so, sorry. Anyway, so we are not charging neighborhood associations for any use of the facilities. They do have to make a reservation. It doesn't, 8 hours, you maybe didn't see that part of the work session. We're not, that's off the table now. We're not doing MOUs with neighborhood associations. We already have agreements with them that basically we approve their charters. Every neighborhood has one. So that's not on the table at all either. But thank you so much for your other comments. Just wanted to clarify that. William, come on up. Thank you so much for being here. It's not raining at the moment, so run outside real quick, everybody. I said it's not raining at the moment, so I said we all might have to run out real quick. It'll change again, yes.
Could you, thanks.
There, does that
Yeah,
work
just
better?
move it a little bit closer. Thank you.
I can move over here.
Wherever you'd like.
How's that?
That is fabulous.
Great. Mayor McGriff and City Commissioners, my name is William Gifford, and I live in Oregon City. Understanding a little bit about how elections work, I understand the concept of advocating for or against a measure cannot be done by staff. And I completely understand that. I mean, electeds and citizens are, of course, encouraged, welcome to, and encouraged to advocate for or against whatever their positions are. Just as I hope that the City Commission is going to be advocating for the urban renewal question that's going to be on the ballot May 16th. But the other issue is going to be the fire district's request of setting up a special levy. And I know that you're going to be getting a presentation. It was why I was a little awkward as to whether I would be talking before or after their presentation. However, I just want to encourage the support of that measure as well. I think that the city remembers painfully the relocation effort, the exodus first at the Clackamas Community College and then having to move again as a result of firefighters. And we understand that firefighters are getting worse and worse. And we were inadequately staffed for that situation, and that situation is coming again. It's not a question of if, but when. And I would like our fire district to be as prepared as possible. And I think this is a reasonable way of doing it, and I just want to support that effort.
Okay, thank you. Rita, come on up. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time. Do you want to come up together? Are you Roland? No. Pardon? Okay, I don't have a slip from you, Mr. Small.
No, he's just sitting with me.
Okay, well, you can just fill one out later and give it to our recorder. Thank you.
Okay, so hear me?
No.
No?
Move it, yeah, just move it closer.
Move it closer?
Yep, there you
there's
go.
good. Okay, my name's Rita Maynard, and I live in the unincorporated area of Oregon City, and I'm the co-president of the Hillendale Pickleball Club. Mayor, city commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to speak in front of you. I realize you've heard a lot about our club, but not from us. I'll be brief. I'll try to address something that's not been discussed, who we are. Hillendale Pickleball Club is a community organization. Yes, we play this game with a silly name, but we are more than participants in a sport. 9 years ago, when it was recognized that seniors too should have an opportunity to use Oregon City parks for exercise, pickleball courts at Hillendale were formed. With $35,000 of grant money, we built the multi-sport courts you see now, With the dollars and thousands of volunteer hours, we have the neighborhood pickleball community. Our community includes those who play the game, which we invite all to do, but it's also for the spectators who join us to chat and to share stories. Commissioner O'Donnell, you pointed out that during COVID, the children of our community took a significant hit, which of course they did. And they've suffered academically, emotionally, and socially. However, another group that was devastated by COVID was the seniors. For many, social isolation was significant. Hillendale Pickleball offered a lifeline for many of these folks. We could exercise outside, we could socialize with each other, we could offer support. Many experienced losses. It's true that this population, even when COVID's not a big concern, has these concerns as well. We need support when we have medical concerns, experiences losses of loved ones. The community plays an important role in people's lives. Money seems to be the topic of the day. Yes, we get contributions to our club. With the money and volunteer time, we've painted the courts, built fences, gates, obtained lockers, balls, nets, paddles. We created a dugout with cement pad, bleachers, sunscreens, which we take down in the winter, put up in the summer. We have a first aid kit, an AED, a well-needed porta potty, which is appreciated greatly by our community. We built a rock retaining wall. We had landscaped it. We maintained it. The money that we collect goes back into operating Hillendale Pickleball. Our volunteers are out there at set times to make the equipment available and oversee play. All in the community are welcome to watch us, to join us. Regulars from the community join us, like Mike and his 2 pug dogs. We always have a skills training court for anybody who wants to learn the game. Just to be clear, our identity as an inclusive club is paramount. The folks who play basketball and frisbee during our play could be our children and our grandchildren, and indeed some of them are. We're not interested in a court grab. Instead, we facilitate all play on our courts, many times assisting those bringing their own nets who are unfamiliar about how the game is played. We're asking you that you see what an asset to the community that our pickleball club is, and without us, you're not going to have a community on those courts. We're asking that exchange for all we provide, that you do not charge us a fee to play on the courts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Small, did you want to say anything?
What's that?
Did you want to say anything? No. Okay, just keeping her company then.
Thank you.
Okay. Roland Welsh. Thank you so much for being here.
Evening. My name is Roland Walsh. My wife and I are business owners on Main Street in Oregon City, and I wanted to discuss the proposed increased parking.
Okay, can I stop you? Because that is an item that is actually on the agenda, and item number 4 is only for items that are not on the agenda. So would you mind waiting on that?
No?
Okay, thank you. It's coming up. Do we have some agendas over there on the side that he can take a look at? So we'll postpone that one. I thought that's why you might be here, but that's that is down a little further. It is under 9A. Item 9A. So, all right, 5A. That's you guys. Clackamas Fire District number 1. So do you guys get to say we're number 1 all the time, or?
We're all number 1.
You're all number 1?
All of us.
We're all number 1. Okay, awesome.
Let's see. Well, thank you so much for having us tonight. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Commission. My name is Brian Stewart. I'm an Assistant Chief of Clackamas Fire District number 1, and we really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you folks this evening to share about a proposed levy that Clackamas Fire has on the ballot coming up on the 16th. Nick Brown, our fire chief, wishes he could be here, but he is off on a well-deserved vacation, visiting a family wedding down in Southern California. We're here today after years of work within our fire district and within communities. We've been in constant communication with City Manager Conkle, and then we've recently had the opportunity to visit with the interagency committee over this and other matters of mutual interest. But as we move forward, what I'd like to do is introduce our Emergency Operations Assistant, Battalion Chief Brent Olson, who will walk us through the presentation tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the time. So the proposed levy measure number 3-594. This will be a 5-year local option levy for staffing and emergency equipment related to emergency medical response, increased staffing of 62 firefighters, as well as response capability increases for wildland fire response. If passed, this would provide an annual funding of approximately $14.5 million at a cost of 52 cents per thousand of assessed property value, which approximates to $138 per year for the typical Clackamas County Fire District Number 1 homeowner at the median assessed value of $266,018. There is some discrepancy. I know people have some confusion in regards to assessed versus real market value. And the county webpage located on the slide there, you can put in your address and find out what your specific assessed evaluation is, and then apply the numbers to see how this levy might affect you. If the levy does not pass, services and equipment would not be funded, and property taxes would not be increased. So there's several factors that have gone into this local option levy. Wildfire resources, personnel, and our population continue to increase. Over the last year, we've seen a 15% increase in call volume, while we've experienced a 9% decrease in staffing. We're coming into compliance with national best practices for staffing models. If passed, this levy, as mentioned before, would fund approximately 62 additional firefighters spread across the district in a wall-to-wall coverage at most district stations. It would also increase staffing at our currently unstaffed stations of Logan and Clarks, which are in parts of unincorporated Oregon City. 24, so that's reference to the 24 staffing there as bullet point number 2. And then also in addition to quick response vehicles. So this is something we get quite a bit, is the public will ask us, well, why are we sending these large vehicles, these fire engines to these low severity calls? And the fact of the matter is we need to keep our staffing together for response to house fires, cardiac arrests, and other major emergencies. So we take that vehicle with us everywhere because that is what our staffing allows at this point. With these additional funds, we can look at doing lighter response vehicles that can respond to these low acuity calls. And it takes those heavy assets, makes them last longer, and gets us there sooner to handle those, like I said, low acuity calls. And then last but certainly not least on everyone's mind, especially post 2020, is the increase to emergency and wildfire response. One amazing thing that the district's been able to do so far through grant funding in regards to this specific bullet point is what we term Crew 30. It's the first 20-person hand crew hosted by a municipal fire agency in either Oregon or Washington ever. That proved critical this last year during the Milo McIver fire, also in unincorporated Clackamas County, and to limiting the spread and containing that wildfire in an efficient and safe manner. We'd like to continue all of these and other items in regards to wildfire response to keep the citizens of Clackamas Fire District safe. And with that, we'd like to keep this brief and take any questions that the council might have.
How many of those 62 additional positions would be stationed within Oregon City limits?
At this time, we would be probably staffing an additional person on both the downtown John Adams station on each shift, so one additional per day there, an additional person out at the South End station, and perhaps more coverage at the Hilltop Fire Station. Those numbers and that plan has not been sussed out exactly yet because we don't want to get over our skis, but this is a wall-to-wall service level increase across the fire district.
So did I understand correctly that 5 of the 62 are currently going to be assigned within Oregon City?
Each day.
each day. Who has primary responsibility for wildfire response?
It's a great question, and it depends on where we're at. Of course, land management agencies such as U.S. Forest Service has jurisdictional authority on their lands. Oregon Department of Forestry also has authority on their lands, but that coverage stops primarily in the southern portion of our counties, and it goes to about Highway 213. Oregon City is not covered by either one of those jurisdictional boundary or jurisdictions. So therefore, your fire district is the last and final purveyor of fire protection in this area.
Thank you.
Mike, do you have any questions? Okay. I think I'll ask the question that I asked you at the open house, was that knowing that hiring is difficult all over the place, my question at the open house was, so the goal is to get 62 firefighters. I don't think there's 62 firefighters out there today ready to go, just like there aren't enough police officers, enough this profession, that profession. Everybody's hiring, everybody's what I'm calling poaching laterals from other places. So I believe that's going to take you all a while to try to ramp up for that. So those positions are going to stay fluid during the 5-year levy period, so you can continue to hire as you find people. Is that kind of how that's going to work?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely can't just flip a switch. We're limited by physical capacities of our building and training centers. So you're absolutely on point that this will be a scaled and metered in as we get not just any person, but the right person to be your firefighters.
So obviously there's going to be a balance because, you know, as much as everybody loves their profession, you've got people that are going to retire out of the system, and so you've got to figure out how to replace those folks, not only with skill sets, but the experience and, you know, so that they can, you know, carry their own weight in the whole system in the district. But any questions?
I have a couple more.
Go right ahead.
Can your existing facilities accommodate 62 additional firefighters?
By and large, yes. There will be we will need to make investments into some of the stations that currently don't have any career fire station or firefighters, such as Logan and the Clark station. But we feel that those investments will be long-term capital investments that will benefit the community not only today, but also well into the future.
And how will they be financed, the long-term capital, maybe to expand the facility size?
With this funding.
With this funding?
Anything else?
If I may, Mr. Commissioner, just to be clear, the 62 firefighters, that would be 62 total FTEs, not 62 per shift. So just like we have 233-ish firefighters today, we don't have 233 on shift a day. Currently, we staff 59 firefighters a day, and this would be an increase of 18 firefighters or so per shift.
And you do lateral transfers from other organizations? Do you accept laterals?
We have in the past, and that's an option we would definitely look at in the future.
And I know the police academy is sort of backlogged to get their people through. Do you have a similar situation in yours?
No, we do our training in-house as opposed to law enforcement, who's, I believe, sends people down to the state academy in Salem.
Yeah. I have no argument with the service you provide, especially up here on the Hill. I've seen your response many times. I have no problem with more mobile, lighter vehicles to quick response instead of bringing out an engine. I understand that. So thanks for your answers, gentlemen.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And don't forget about the open house, folks. It's Saturday, April 22nd from, did it say 10 to 11:30 or 9 to 11:30?
10 to 11:30. You're right on it.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. See you in the neighborhood. All right. Next, we have on our agenda the 2022-2023 Community Satisfaction Survey. And I would say that, you know, outside of some of the things that we do, this is one of the things I look forward to, that reading this and kind of seeing what some of the things in our that our community members have talked about. It would be great if we could do like a, 400 or 500 person survey, but we do what we do. So Tony, are you going to lead this one off?
No, I'm going to turn this over to Jared Lyman. He's online on Zoom tonight, and he'll be introducing the subject matter.
Hi, Jared.
Thank you. Sorry I'm not there this morning, but I figured Zoom was better than me sharing my germs, so I went remote.
Is it morning? Is it morning where you are?
No, it's raining where I'm at, so.
I thought maybe you were in a different time zone or something.
No, just half an hour. Just for a little background, the city's been conducting this biannual satisfaction survey of the residents, focusing on key topics in their interest since 2018. This is the third time the survey's been conducted. And as you know, information gleaned from the survey is used to help form the goals and the priorities that will be the key points of focus for the next biennium. So to kind of go over that, joining me also via Zoom is Jason Morato. He's the Vice President and Director of Community Research with ETC Institute. They're the company that's been conducting this survey on the city's behalf since we started conducting these, and he's here to provide a summary of the results.
Thank you, Jason. Welcome.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Mayor, City Council. My name is Jason Morato. I'm with ETC Institute, and we're a marketing research firm that specializes in conducting community surveys for local governments. And we just finished for the third time conducting a community survey for Oregon City. So today I'm going to go through the high-level findings from the survey. The full report is very detailed and comprehensive. So today I'm going to walk through really some of the key findings. I have just one slide about ETC Institute. We're based in the Kansas City area. We're a national leader in providing market research for local governments. We've been doing this type of work for over 40 years. And in the last 10 years alone, we've conducted surveys in more than 1,000 communities across the country. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. This is just a quick rundown of what I'll go through today. I'll go over the purpose and methodology of the survey. I'll walk through the key findings. And then if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. So there are several reasons to conduct a survey like this. One is to get an objective assessment of how satisfied residents are with major city services and to determine what Oregon City residents feel are the top priorities for the community. We're also able to measure trends from your previous surveys. Most of these questions are the same ones we've asked in the last two surveys. That way we can measure trends over time. And then we're also able to compare your results with other communities across the country. So this survey was administered by a combination of mail and online who randomly selected residents throughout the city. That's our standard methodology for these types of surveys. We ended up with 321 completed surveys, so we had a good response. The goal was to receive at least 300. And the results of the 321 surveys at the 95% level of confidence has a margin of error of plus or minus 5.4%. So essentially that means that if we conducted this survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus 5.4% from what we're reporting. So even for a statistically valid survey like this, the results are never perfect, but the margin of error is very small. Here we have a map of the city. The red dots are households that completed a survey. So we had a good distribution throughout the city. And as we were administering the survey, we made sure that the demographics reflect the actual population of the city. So we made sure we had a good representation based on age, gender, and race and ethnicity survey responding.
Could you, Jacob,
So here are our main conclusions.
Put that one back up again. Part of the screen of you guys is on the bottom, and I couldn't see the whole thing. So there you go. Oh, thank you, Jacob.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so hang on just a quick second. Looks like it's heavily in the south part of the town.
Yeah, and the way this typically works is the more densely populated areas are where the survey respondents come from. This distribution is pretty similar to what we had on your two previous surveys.
That's where a lot of our new residential areas are. Park Place and the neighborhood that I live in are on the upper part, and there's not as many, which is interesting. And that's the older parts of town. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so here are our main conclusions from the survey. We found that residents have a positive perception of the city. 86% of respondents rated Oregon City as an excellent or good place to live, and 75% rated Oregon City as an excellent or a good place to raise children. We also found that the city is moving in the right direction. Satisfaction ratings have increased or stayed the same in 57 out of the 93 areas since your last survey in 2020. And that definitely goes against the trend of what we've been seeing in other communities lately. The majority of cities we've surveyed, especially over the last 6 to 8 months or so, have had overall a lot more decreases than increases in satisfaction over the past few years. We also, when we compared your results to other communities, one of the things that really stood out is that Oregon City rated 21% above the U.S. average when it comes to the overall quality of city services. And that's one of the most important questions on the survey, because here we're asking residents to take into account all the services that you're providing and really give an overall satisfaction rating for how well you're doing. And then another area that stood out is that satisfaction with customer service from city employees rated 13 percentage points above the U.S. average. The top overall priorities were maintenance of city streets, police services, economic development, parks, trails, and open space, and communication. So first we'll look at some general perceptions that residents have of the city. So here we asked residents to rate their perceptions of the city in a number of different ways. The dark blue are ratings of those who are very satisfied, light blue is satisfied, gray is neutral, and we interpret neutral as meeting expectations. It's a rating of a 3 on the 5-point scale, so really average, not bad, but not as good as the blue. And then the pink are those who gave a rating of dissatisfied or very satisfied. So overall, for most of these areas, the positive ratings outweigh the negative. If you look at this top row, almost 2/3 of respondents are either very satisfied or satisfied with the overall quality of city services. And that's compared to only 7% who are dissatisfied. So you've got more than a 9-to-1 ratio of those who are satisfied versus dissatisfied with the overall quality of city services, which is a very good ratio. Oftentimes that ratio is more around 4 or 5 to 1. Here we asked residents how they feel about Oregon and the city in a number of different ways. If you look at the top of this chart, 86% of respondents rated Oregon City as an excellent or good place to live. The majority also gave positive ratings to the overall quality of life. And then about 3/4 rated Oregon City as an excellent or a good place to raise children. This was the very first question on the survey. Here we asked residents to rate major categories of city services. So here we're asking residents to rate these areas at the big picture departmental level. And then later on in the survey, we asked about some more specific areas within some of these categories. So again, the blue are the positive, the pink are the negative. Overall, the positive ratings outweigh the negative. If you look at the top of this chart, the highest rated areas are public library services, police, sewer, water, parks, trails, and open space, and customer service from city employees. The only areas where there are more negative responses than positive was economic development, and then about an equal number of positive and negative to maintain streets, and then the permit process. But there were a significant number of people who selected don't know to the permit process. That's just not a process that is many residents are familiar with. Now, for residents who have had contact with the city, we asked them to rate their interaction with city employees. And these results were very, very positive. Almost 90% of respondents felt like city employees were courteous and polite. The majority also felt that employees gave prompt, accurate, and complete answers to questions, did what they said they would do in a timely manner, and then ultimately helped residents resolve their issue, whatever their issue was, to their satisfaction. So here again, we have a map of the city, and here we broke the results out by census block group. These are fairly small areas, and this tells us if residents in different parts of the city are rating services differently. We created a map like this for every question on the survey, asked on a 5-point scale. So there are over 100 maps in the report. This one is for the overall quality of city services. Most areas are in blue, meaning that residents in those areas, the majority are satisfied with the overall quality of city services. There are a couple areas in the yellowish. The ratings there are a little bit lower, but still not bad. There aren't any areas in orange or red, which would mean that residents in those areas, the majority would be dissatisfied. So generally, residents throughout the city are positive, gave positive ratings to the overall quality of city services. So I mentioned earlier that the city's moving in the right direction. Since your last survey in 2020, satisfaction ratings have increased in 49 of 93 areas, stayed the same in 8, decreased in 36 areas. And this is, again, goes against the trend of what we've been seeing recently. Most communities have had more decreases and increases in satisfaction over the past few years. This charts for major categories of city services. The pink bar are the satisfaction ratings for the first time we did your survey in 2018. The gray are the ratings for your last survey in 2020. And then the blue bar are the ratings for the survey we just completed. I put arrows by the places that had significant increase or decrease in satisfaction since your last survey. And by significant, I mean more than 5%. So 2 areas have had a significant increase in satisfaction since 2020. That's the library and sewer services. The only area that had a significant decrease was overall maintenance of city streets. For most areas, the ratings are pretty similar this time as they were to previous surveys. Now, here are the areas that have had the biggest increases in satisfaction since your last survey in 2020. Oregon City as a place for dining and entertainment options, quality recreational areas for dogs, the ease of booking meeting rooms, library, quality of content on social media, job opportunities, snow and ice response on major streets, and then events for teens. And then the areas with the biggest decreases since your last survey were overall development across the city, quality of new development, response to drug control and property crime, variety of housing choices, level of community outreach, and then maintenance of streets. So we also compared your results to other communities. For this chart, the blue line are the satisfaction ratings for your survey. The pink bar are the satisfaction ratings for residents from all across the U.S. And then the gray bar are satisfaction ratings for residents who live in the Northwest region. So this includes the state of Oregon as well as some surrounding states. And this is based on a national study that ETC Institute conducts every year. So you can see there are 4 areas where your ratings are significantly higher than both the regional and national average. That includes the library, police services, sewer, customer service. There aren't any areas where your ratings are significantly below the regional and national average, but the other areas without the blue arrows are really kind of on par with other communities. So now we'll look at the top priorities. Earlier, we saw satisfaction with major categories of city services. As a follow-up question, we asked which of these services should receive the most emphasis from city leaders over the next 2 years. So you can see the top priority is maintenance of streets. The other highest priorities were police services, parks, trails, and open space, economic development. Now, this is something we call the important satisfaction rating. This is a tool that we use to help communities set priorities. And this analysis is based on 2 different types of data. First, we ask residents how satisfied they are with services. And then as a follow-up, we ask which of these services are the most important, which should receive the most emphasis. So the idea behind this is that those areas that have a combination of low satisfaction ratings, but at the same time are the most important, should be the highest priorities. Making improvements in those areas would impact the greatest number of residents. So for major categories of services, the highest priorities are maintenance of city streets, economic development. Those are the areas in pink. Areas in yellow are also a high priority, and that includes codes and ordinances, communication with the public, parks, trails, and open space, and recreation programs. This important satisfaction table is specifically for transportation and infrastructure. The highest priority is the overall maintenance of major city streets. Other high priorities include maintaining neighborhood streets and traffic calming measures in neighborhoods. For public safety, the top priority is response to issues with transients. Other high priorities in the yellow are response to drug control, just overall efforts to prevent crime, and then response to property crime. For parks and recreation, the top priority is quantity of city trails, quality recreational areas for dogs, and then the appearance and maintenance of existing city parks, just missed volumes of the yellow area. We've got a few other findings to take a look at. Here we ask residents which capital investments should be the highest priorities, and residents could pick up to 5 choices. The top priority was road maintenance and pavement preservation. Over 70% of respondents picked that as one of their top 5 highest priorities from this list. The other highest priorities were traffic congestion relief, recreation facilities, park improvements and maintenance, then the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. We also asked residents how they feel about level of change in service expectations. So for this chart, the blue areas means that residents would like to see a higher level of service. The gray means the current level of service is where it should be, so respondents think that should be the same. And then the pink means the level of service should be lower. The residents would like the higher level of service with transportation, facilities, and programs. Almost 60% said they'd like to see a higher level of service with law enforcement. That was second on this list. Last time we conducted this survey, law enforcement was farther down the list. It was 6th. So that's a higher priority this time than it was on your last survey. Then we also asked about the current pace of development. The blue areas means the current pace of development is too slow. The residents would like to see more development in those areas. The gray means the current pace is just right. And then the pink means residents feel the pace of development is moving too fast. So the areas that residents feel should receive where the pace of development is moving too slow include housing options for the aging population. That's a higher priority this time than it was on your last survey. Last time it was only about 4th or 5th on the list. Now it's at the top. Residents would also like to see more technology in other industries and employment opportunities. Employment opportunities was at the top of the list last time in 2020. Still a high priority, but a little bit lower than it was on your last survey. And then a little over 40% of respondents said the pace of development is too fast for apartments and towns. So that's everything that I had. Just a quick recap. You saw that residents have a positive perception of the city. The majority of respondents rated Oregon City as an excellent or good place to live and to raise children. Overall, things are moving in the right direction. The majority of areas have either an increase in satisfaction or at least stayed the same compared to 2020. When we compared your results to other communities, a couple of things that really stood out were you rated much higher than other cities for the overall quality of city services, as well as customer service from city employees. And then the top overall priorities were streets, police services, economic development, park trails and open space, and communication. So with that, does anyone have any questions or comments?
Questions, gentlemen? Mike, anything you noted or want to make an observation about?
No, I'm still working my way through the question 33, which was the open-ended question. I always find the responses there interesting. And I picked up on what Jason said, that most cities are finding their ratings going down as we come out of COVID, and we're going the opposite way. So all in all, there's still some challenges there for us, but it looks like a good report overall.
Right?
Yeah, I guess I'd just comment. I think there's a lot of good observations here, a lot of good things. And, I always think of the city as a service organization. What's our level of service? And quite honestly, a report only has value if we use it to align our efforts to serve the community. And I look at this, and although there's some good things, there's some things that obviously need to improve. And I don't worry about a small swing, 4 points or whatever. That's not a big deal. But when I see large swings, like the concern about economic development that progressively has gone down from 39 to 34 to 30, and a concern about recreation, I look at what is the community focused on. So this report has a lot of value, and I don't want to just emphasize the negatives, but those are the areas that we should seek to improve. We should always seek to improve across the board, but those should be a focus of our attention. There's a lot of things that you look and see what's the community willing to do in terms of fee increases. And at any given point, it's 44% of the people don't want to move forward because they're strapped and facing more and more efforts to support government in many forms, as we see by tonight's bond and by other things that you'll see. There's a lot. It was interesting to me that the diversity and inclusion piece was, 66% of the people were either neutral or dissatisfied. So apparently there's not a heavy emphasis on the community on that. There was an emphasis on transient issues. Some things I disagree with. There's this 40% neutral and 42% dissatisfied with public involvement. Let me tell you, that's a two-way street. You got to get involved. We're trying to put it before you. This meeting is here. You look at the attendance here, and you look at the number of people that come in and communicate, and it's a small percentage. So if you want to be critical of public involvement, guess what? Some of that resides with you. So you step forward and have your say, because we're listening. It was an interesting. I thought that the type of respondents was excellent. I found it interesting that there's a large group of people that have only lived here 5 years or less. And there's a large group of people that have been here, 42% were 20 years and above. So we got this big down this end and down that end. So I think the report has value, and I don't want to emphasize the negatives, but I do think it's a roadmap to improve our service level to everyone in the city. So I actually think this report does have value. So thank you.
Rocky?
I have nothing to add. I'm
Still digesting. Adam?
Yeah, I would concur with Commissioner O'Donnell. I think it's difficult for us to get a more objective view of what our community members think of city services, because part of the very purpose we have citizen comment is so that people can bring their grievances to us and communicate that directly to us. And in terms of things that go well, that's not generally something people reach out about. And so having a statistically valid survey that reinforces a lot of things that I already thought, specifically as it relates to the pace of development, the kinds of development, the quality of development. It reinforces a lot of the stuff that I feel and that I think that this commission feels very strongly about, showing us strong support for our law enforcement and realizing that our issue, not just in Oregon City, but as a state with transient issues, is something that we need to really be working on. And not just us, I will add, not just us taking the brunt of everyone else. And so I really appreciated being able to go through this because, again, we don't have the opportunity to hear more of an unbiased view apart from when people come to us. So when we're going to them and we're asking, I've been impressed by this, and I'm glad that we're doing this. Thank you.
Chair, may I make an additional comment?
Absolutely.
On question 33, that's the open-ended question, and it's an interesting read because it's all over. And I'll just say this, there were some valuable comments in there, and the communication piece is huge. I mean, the thing that's known as the water bill or utility bill, God, I hope our communications guy writes an explanation of what's really in there, because no one still understands all the components of that. Some of the comments demonstrated a lack of understanding, and yeah, that's true. Please get educated on things. Some things demonstrated a lack of the limitations imposed on us by the state. Some things don't reflect the value of private property. Infrastructure, I agree with you completely. You know, streets and sidewalks, yeah, I'm amazed that we don't have sidewalks in many areas, but the tolling piece, good Lord, we're fighting every way we know, and we've got an entity that's just going to ride roughshod over us in the end. And I hope that we succeed in some way, shape, or form to prevent that, because that piece is going to have a huge impact on our community as a whole. We all understand the homelessness. We're looking at code enforcement in terms of how does it going to work? Is it complaint-based, or is it going to be initiated by the enforcement officers themselves? And there's some good thoughts in there, and they might involve a partnership between the private and the public sector. Sure, I'd love to see a youth center too. I'd love to have things to do. I mean, at one point in communities, the bowling alley was a center of things to do, and those things are long gone. So
It's all private enterprise, though. That's not.
But I'm saying, these are the comments that are made, and people, it reflects a lack of understanding of what is government's role and what is private parties' role.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting read, and it's all over, and some things we can fix, and some things we can fix with your help, and some things we can't fix.
Yeah, and it reflects that age-old conundrum of not wanting to pay more, but also expecting more in services. And so as we head into the budget and discuss how we want to balance those priorities, I think this couldn't have come at a better time for us because, again, it's exactly as Commissioner O'Donnell said, people are expecting more, especially of our parks, but at the same time, we have to be cognizant of what we're looking at charging. But sometimes for residents, it's difficult to see how that equation balances out. And so heading into the budget session, I'm going to look forward to having this right next to my big binder and comparing the budget proposal versus what our community says we need to invest in.
There's no shortage of topics for our communications person to write on to our community, because it's all there.
Yeah, what I basically saw in this, and this is my third time going around reading this, and two times as an elected, but the thing that, as I would agree with you, Commissioner O'Donnell, is that there's a lot of things in here that we have absolutely no control over, and I do not understand why the public does not understand that. We cannot lower taxes for seniors. We are not in charge of taxes. That's state of Oregon, county. You know, we don't have control over that. We can't make people put restaurants in the hilltop area so somebody can walk to them. That's not part of our role. You know, there's other things in here where people are asking, you know, as you said, and I don't begrudge them because, again, it's a lack of understanding. I would also say I don't get much news about the city. Please, I'm not getting commission, but get the Oregon City News. It's free. It gives you information. Read your trail news when it comes. They said, now I'm retired. I might have more time. Fix potholes. Well, I'm sure John has heard about that a lot. You know, I know we're a small city with limited funding. You know, we're providing basic services, and as much as I hate to say that things cost money, you know, why don't we put sidewalks everywhere? The city has over the years applied for community development block grants in the areas of our community where they apply and have put in sidewalks, but not all areas qualify for community development block grants. And if there are no sidewalks, it's not because we haven't tried to help you get sidewalks, it's just those areas were not developed. And I'm always amazed when I go to Lake Oswego and you walk through Lake Oswego in the neighborhoods and there are no sidewalks. And you're talking about narrow little skinny streets. And I was on a hike with a friend and I was scared to death because I'm like in the street. So it's, you know, it's not just us. There's places in Gladstone that don't have sidewalks. Those are not going to come cheap. I thought it was interesting, said keep Max line out of the area. Well, you know, if we had Max today, we would, you know, we would have less reliance on people's cars. I do like some of the ideas that I saw in here. We probably do need to figure out how to fund an ADA accessible playground. There are enough children around that might be able to take advantage of this. I like seniors should have reduced rates and reductions in taxes. So talk to your state representative and your state senator. They talk about a pioneer freeze. I don't know what that is, but that was an interesting comment. open and exploit into the Oregon Trail. Again, as Mr. O'Donnell said, I am so sick of talking to people about tolling, but I'm going to keep talking about tolling, and I'll be making a phone call tonight to talk to somebody about tolling after our meetings tonight. There were a lot of things in here about drug use, which is interesting. Clackamat Park, I feel unsafe going to Fred Meyer. I only shop at Safeway in the morning because there's no, stuff going on. Please put sidewalks on Barker. Well, we've put speed humps on Barker, but I would say, Barker friends, let's talk about putting together an LID for your neighborhood if we want to try to fund a sidewalk repair. Start building condos. We have no control over building condominiums or apartments or anything else other than whether we allow them in a zone or not. We don't control the method of production in terms of building units for people. We do have a great ADU ordinance. We haven't had very many take advantage of it. So if you wrote that comment and you're listening, come on down to the planning department, talk to the city about getting an ADU for alternate housing. Just again, a lot of things in here. This was great information, but there just is so much stuff in here that we do not control, that we don't have any ability to affect it because it's not within the purview of our local government. And even though we're a home rule city, we still don't have the authority to do that. Lots of traffic questions, lots of traffic stuff. So that was interesting. I read all of these. A lot of stuff about teens. Again, we didn't own the bowling alley. We didn't own the drive-in. That was all private enterprise. The bowling alley in Milwaukee is now gone, and there's a gigantic apartment complex going up in its place. And the nearest bowling alley, I think, is the one there on off of Powell, Kingpins. I think that's the closest place you can actually go bowl and do a family activity like that, and you still have to drive. But I thought the last one, which was interesting, widen the roads. We are geographically constrained in so many places. We don't have the capacity to widen our roads.
Just really quick, because I don't want to belabor this, but I will say that the general uptick in these categories has also come while our staff has been assaulted with mandates coming down from the state. John's team going through all this tolling stuff. Aquila's team going through the climate-friendly, equitable community stuff, HB 2001. This general increase in satisfaction really goes to say something, as Jason said, but especially considering the fact that we live in Oregon and we've got a lot of stuff that our staff has to be doing in addition to the general customer service that our residents deserve and expect. So I just want to give a huge shout out to them for that work.
Ditto.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on to our next item. So is there, we have the consent agenda. Are there any items that you would like to see off, or shall we move to approve? I'd like to have a further discussion, as I'm sure you know I will, the item involving the dead tree at the pool, which is 7E, I believe.
I didn't quite understand the attack on our IT system. There were two numbers stated in there about the attack on our IT system. There's a number we're going to make an expense for, and a number we paid.
What document are we talking about?
It's in the consent agenda.
Okay, sorry, I lost you there.
I got to find which item it is.
7C.
Yeah, there's something. I think there's a figure of like 98,000 and another figure. Just a brief explanation. I'm not challenging it. I just want to understand it better.
7A.
Is it 7A or 7?
No, 7A is one I want.
Okay, so we're asking for 7A and 7E to be put under general business, and could we have just a little explanation on 7D? Is that you, Michael?
I have the same question.
Is it the Microsoft contract or the MOX 5 contract for network restoration? Yeah. Okay, 7C, sorry. For the millions of citizens that do not know you as intimately as we do, you are?
Mike Dobai from Oregon State IT Director.
There were there were a number of figures stated in the reports, and I just want to understand the total impact. I have to go back and reread.
So total impact is to the city out of pocket is about 98,000, just a little over 98. And that is due to the fact that we have X dollars that are coming from Mox 5, from Cipriani, and from the resources that we used, as well as the resources from Polar Systems and Tyler Mo Reader for PD to work on all of the services during that situation. And then the two pieces that we have for coming from insurance, we got so much money coming back from insurance on two different insurance. There was Cowbell and CIS. And then we have to pay the deductibles for those. So after coming through all those calculations, it comes to a little over 98.
Then we have a future expenditure, is that correct? Is there an additional, I thought I saw a number like 142. I have to go back and.
That was, so the 142 was the total amount used or before we do the deductibles and before we do those calculations.
Okay.
So the 142, 755, $142,755 is what we're asking for is that approval for those contracts for Mox 5 and for the Mox 5 contract that we had.
Correct.
So I don't have signing authority above $50,000, so I need that. The request is to have that contract approved. So we had multiple parties working on our response. Mox 5 was the team that came in and helped with the restoration. Cipriani, we had a contract there, an attorney that specializes in network intrusions. And that contract was less than 50, so I was able to sign that. We have current work that also happened with Polar, who's our
managed service provider.
Our managed service provider that we have under contract, but they had extra work in responding. So what we were asking for here is the specific Mox 5 contract approval for the $142,000.
Correct.
But when we add together the Mox 5, the Cipriani, the Polar, it's about a $98,000 cost to the city once we're reimbursed from Cowbell, our insurance, and CIS, our two insurance carriers. So we could give you a breakdown of the total.
No, you don't need to.
Okay.
I was just interested, it not only basically covers our expenses in responding to the event, which you listed as both legal and forensic, but it also positions us to be less vulnerable in the future.
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to understand.
Yeah, so we consider, once this is approved, kind of the immediate response to the network disruption, intrusion, we're kind of saying, okay, we're done now. Right. There are things that we're going to work on that we are currently working on implementing, as well as you'll see in the budget that comes forward, of things we learned through this process. So, but we consider this event done at this point.
Okay, so these costs are specific to that event, and there may be future costs that we decide to expend to make our sites harder.
Would be like best practices or recommendations on how to improve the system.
That's all I had, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions on the Microsoft?
No, I don't, we just got the numbers mixed up.
Okay.
Sorry. We just got the numbers mixed up. So can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda subject to those two items? Going on to the general.
Which two items?
The
7A and 7E, I believe.
Yeah, 7E is going to be really quick, so.
Yep.
So moved.
I'll second.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
All right.
We are
that
not
an
going
aye?
to vote. Mayor McGriff, what was your
Pardon?
vote?
Yes, I said aye.
Got it. Thank you.
So we are lucky tonight that, or not lucky, so we don't have any items under number 8. We don't have any public hearings tonight, but we do have general business. So let's, since we have some citizens here, let's take item 9A, proposal to look at resolution 2307, adopting new parking meter fees in the downtown zones. And that would be OCPD and our fabulous parking manager. Come on up, Mr. Kersey. Did you want to say anything, Captain?
Yes, Captain Sean Davis from the Police Department. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We don't have a presentation tonight, but Code Enforcement Manager Ryan Kersey and I are here tonight to present with Resolution 2307 and give you a little background on it. At the January 18th Commission meeting, you were presented with a parking study update from the 2021 Downtown Bluff Parking Study. During that presentation, one of the recommendations presented to you was to standardize and simplify parking in the downtown commercial areas. The study found the different zones and non-standardized parking fees in the metered parking spaces were confusing. Also noted, our downtown is very small compared to other cities, and having two different parking fees of 50 cents and $1 is confusing. It could be confusing to visitors and customers visiting downtown. Additionally, when you use the app, and if you're parked near those boundaries, it can be confusing on where you're actually parking, or you're in a 50-cent zone, so it's hard for that app and the users to use that app and pay correctly. Originally, the recommendation from the parking study was to investigate the topic further and bring back information to the Commission. However, during the meeting and after some discussion, the Commission was in support and consensus to moving the change in parking fees from investigate to have the staff proceed with the change. However, Oregon City Municipal Code requires parking fees to be changed by a resolution by the Commission, so that's why we're here tonight. The map that is in the packet, that's the current map of the downtown parking zones. If it does get adopted or if there's any amendments that you would recommend, we'll create a different map that will reflect those. I'm going to turn it over to Code Enforcement Ryan Kersey. He's going to give you some little additional information, and then if you got questions.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and Commissioner Mitchell online there. Just a little bit of information. This will impact stalls on the south end and north end of downtown, approximately 84 on the south end, and 62 parking stalls will be affected overall. Downtown in our whole entire district, we run about 465 parking stalls on the street. And then we also did some looking at what other jurisdictions have. City of Portland, their downtown district's $2 per hour. Their event district is $4 per hour. City of Beaverton charges $1 per hour for their parking garage. City of Bend, they're $1 per hour. And City of Hood River's $1 per hour. Those are the pretty much comparable ones. Portland has like, I think 6 or 7 different rate structures all the way up to about $4 to $5 an hour. So we're just looking for direction. Appreciate and thank you guys for helping us replace the outdated and broken kiosks. We got all the existing ones replaced and the others are waiting for direction tonight. And then we can also work on the mobile app with what the direction is determined.
So we still have more parking meters to come, or do we need to approve more parking?
No. You've approved them all, so I appreciate that. Yeah, no, we've received them, but I know Christina Robertson kind of put her hat on for me as I wasn't able to make the January 18th meeting. And that was our request because we had those machines coming in. So we just wanted to make sure they got installed and programmed with the proper rates. We did have to reprogram them, half of them we got them because we didn't have a resolution with your guys' direction from January. So we're coming back today to kind of just get your direction officially, and then we can kind of move forward with the remainder of the ones we want to install. They're here, we have possession of them, but we just have to get them programmed properly, so.
So what comments have you heard? Have they been well received? I've been checking in with different businesses I go to and say, are you getting complaints? And I've not heard any, but that doesn't mean there aren't any.
Yeah, so we have staff down there every day. They're easy to use, they take all forms of payment. They print out a receipt. You pay by plate now, so you don't have to go back to your car and put a receipt in it. And then, of course, you have the mobile app option. But everybody's enjoying them. Everybody's using them. I looked at our March report. It's pretty comparable. The use is back up because people can use their card there. The only complaint we had, we're trying to get a little notice on the front of them because they go into like a sleep mode after a minute or two to just, save battery and those kind of things. So people will come up and the screen is blank. So just a little kind of touch any key to turn on.
Do you have to tap it and then it'll come?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like you do a phone or anything else?
Yeah.
questions? Go ahead.
I don't have a question. I think about this a lot. We approved the purchase of those, and we were told that there's a yearly income stream. I think it approached $250,000. But I think about the current state versus the future state, and I think we're going to have to monitor this going forward. My concerns, quite honestly, are the challenges to our downtown area. And those challenges involve tolling, which is looming on the horizon, and the impact that'll have. The relocation of the courthouse, which was a big parking income generation device. And in addition to that, if the north end were to significantly develop, I look at the competitive disadvantage it may place our downtown at, and we're just going to have to keep an eye on that, because I don't want it to turn into a last choice of people. I want it to be vibrant, and I want it to be attractive, and I'm trying not to put obstacles in the way of people visiting it. So I know this may seem minor, but when we considered everything else before, quite honestly, I didn't think about the courthouse moving and the impact that was going to have. So we really need to be cognizant of the changes in the coming years and see that we may need to revisit this. And that's my only thought.
Oh, thank you for that. And just so you know, we do have it on our 2025 schedule for the parking study to be redone. You met Pete and Rick at the January meeting. They're going to come back out once the courthouse leaves and reevaluate all of our downtown parking. So we'll have a better idea of what it is.
Yeah, I just think in terms of the obstacles I just stated and the competitive disadvantage and the attractiveness of going downtown versus if the north end should succeed, that's an easy parking situation, no charge. So we need to be cognizant of that in the future and not abandon our downtown businesses. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I had a question. So why do we not have our lot at 13th on Main signed as after-hours parking? Because I thought we were going to make that an after-hours parking lot too, that it would only be paid during the week.
The parking lot, the municipal parking lot?
Yes, our parking lot.
Yeah, it's only signed for daytime, Monday through Friday parking that's paid through the half-day or full-day rate.
I know where those after-hour parking signs are because I saw them when I was here Friday. So could we get that sign so that people know that they can park there after hours without having...
Yeah, we can update that.
Because that makes sense.
Surely.
Jacob, you know where those signs are. They're down in the basement. I saw them when I was down there with you. I said, oh, why are these here? But anyway, it would help a long way. I know that there's still some tension, and I don't mean to pick on you, Corner 14, but we do have a lot of patrons that are parking in the neighborhood when they could park at 13th and Main and, come up Center Street and be like right there. And it would be a lot easier than, parking on the street and other places. So I think that's an opportunity that we need to take. So I guess, there you go. Thank you for putting the map back up. So the situation that we are faced with, and I've got two people that would like to talk about it. So from our location here, so from Zone 2, so does that, the green is everything in the yellow, is that Zone 2? No, keep going, I guess. I don't figure out exactly where Zone 2 is.
So what we're basically going to be doing is, reducing these zone numbers all to the same amount.
So right now, the 50-cent parking that's existing goes from where to where?
It's 14th to 10th on Main Street and the side streets. And then it's from 7th down to 99E. And there's about 4 meters in front of the mill entrance as well.
Okay.
It'll impact those.
Do we have any background on why there was a difference in those two particular areas?
I know the courthouse was heavily utilized, that area around there, originally. I did not read the report or see it for the 2011 resolution that set those fee rates. So I'm not sure on the exact reasoning, but as Commissioner O'Donnell said, I know the impact was heavy on the courthouse.
Yeah, it's just odd that part of that zone is up off of 12. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but particularly up there. So, okay, well, stand by. We've got a couple people that want to talk about. Oh, sorry, Mike. You moved from my left to my right on the screen. Sorry about that.
Thank you. A comment and a question. I agree completely with Commissioner O'Donnell. I think whatever we do tonight is just for now, but between Tumwater Village, the courthouse, and what might happen at the north end, this is going to be a flexible situation in terms of how we respond to assist our downtown businesses. But the question I have, I just want to make sure that what you're presenting not tonight is only a change in fee from 50 cents to $1 an hour in those areas, and there is no change in hours or no change in areas that are that have parking fees based on where we are now. We're talking only about an increase, no expanded hours, no expanded area. Is that correct?
That is correct.
There was never a discussion. There was information by our parking consultants who said we should consider it. We said, no, we don't want to consider it. So we're not really considering, hearing that for now.
Have it on the record.
Yeah, it's on the record. We're not considering that whatsoever. And we were very clear with Rick and Pete that that's not something we want to take up at this point in time. I would say, however, one of my concerns when we talked about that is that I want to strongly encourage my business owner friends to not park on the street on the weekends, because downtown, particularly I'm using the area from 7th South on a regular basis, and there's generally not a lot of places to park. And I don't know my business owner friends' cars, but don't park on the street. Got to be someplace else. And one of the things that I know I talked to you about is us possibly implementing some parking for employees, and we're going to reevaluate that as we get closer to the courthouse vacating, because we will have space in our lot, and I think that's something we definitely need to support and encourage, that we have a dedicated spot where people who work downtown can park there. So, yes.
On the topic of the downtown lot after hours, and I won't say we because I think this was another commission, but the topic never came back. And that topic was all of the city lots after use parking. We discussed we discussed City Hall. Those signs were changed. We discussed Pioneer Center. That has never come back to us. We discussed the VFW lot. That never came back to us. We talked about a gate at the VFW lot. That never came back to us. Well, that was a whole nother topic.
Oh, okay.
To patrol people being there late at night.
Oh, right, yeah, that's
but that never happened. I basically brought up the issue that we probably should be consistent with city parking lots, meaning that right now the Pioneer Center is marked Pioneer Center only, and it should be able to be used for events that happen over at the Hermitanger House or whatever. But I also understood at that point that sometimes City Hall has uses of meetings in the evenings, and sometimes Pioneer Center has the evenings. And so those signs need to be adjustable that say evening parking, but then you could slip something in there that says, event tonight, it's not unavailable. We need to have some signs that are a little bit more flexible so that on nights that there's nothing going on, people can use those lots. So I'd like to revisit some of that, because I think anything that we can do to utilize some of those spaces, because people, if we can figure out a way to, let people park in some of those places, they may, stroll down the promenade and go downtown and stay off the streets.
I think the after hours parking sign, the one we have at our lot at 625, does say it's general use, except for when there's a meeting. And I remember seeing that, and I thought, oh, that's good, that's pretty clear.
But I also know that some of the shared lots downtown that lost signs on their lots months and months, even a year ago, were never replaced.
Yeah,
so
we don't. The only shared parking lot we have, that's
the one at the
old First Interstate Bank. The other owners.
I picked up a sign off of the parking lot and brought it up, and I don't think it ever got replaced.
Yeah, the other owners were not agreeable to partnering with and doing that.
I just don't want us to forget that topic.
Their lots are sitting there off their hours, and so people do park there, but they risk getting towed because those all signed to, we have some predatory lots downtown not by us. These are by private owners. So, so we should probably do that. We should probably look into that, getting the Pioneer Center's lot signed, because we have, like I said, there's 3 or 4 of them we already have. They're already printed, put those up. And is there another besides Pioneer Community Center?
Well, we talked about VFW, that has other issues, but.
We probably should have a chat with our VFW friends before we move into that one, but at least we could do Pioneer Community Center. That would be really helpful, so. All right. So do I flip a coin on who wants to, well, actually, I know who I'm going to pick first, so that's okay. So Ryan, you want to just, you can, whoever gets speaking can come over here, or you can just stay there. So now, Roland, come on up. Of the most amazing coffee shop downtown.
Hello, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Yes, as Denise said, my wife and I own a business on Main Street. It is during the day when we are open. It is retail, and I hear you have not heard complaints. If you want to come down to the shop, we get them daily. Me and my staff are constantly hearing lots and lots of complaints. A lot from older people not knowing how to use the machines, not understanding why. And we get a lot of visitors from out of town coming in that do not appreciate it. I heard that Portland and Beaverton were...
Could you say that? You said they don't...
They don't appreciate they don't understand why there is a charge to park.
During the week or on the weekend?
No, there's not on the weekend.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so during the week,
Yeah,
when they are required to pay.
I actually have sat in White Rabbit and sat like this because I didn't want somebody to come ask me about the parking meters.
Yeah, no, and we have no idea what to tell them. We definitely lose business. People say they won't be back.
Because there's parking meters?
Yeah. And we also see quite a bit. I know that it's not, there's other factors, but on the days when there's not charging for parking, so holidays or weekends, we see more than double people through the door. It seems like I know that there's a larger issue during the evenings and when there's a lot of restaurant parking because it's a very restaurant heavy street. But there's no metering then, so it seems like a tax on the daytime/retail businesses, which are the ones that struggle. We've had several go out recently. Danielle, my wife, has proposed a few times at meetings and to staff something more pragmatic, like first half hour free, that would maintain, you don't have to change the length of time you're parked, but would continue keeping people moved. But if people are just coming for a short time, it would not inhibit them. So we just wanted to let it be known that we do hear a lot of feedback about dislike and it's stopping people from coming. And of course, there's more that we don't hear from because they come and then they don't come back. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
I don't know how you do the first half hour free, and I wish there was a way where the vendors could, where you do the thing for their parking or they park, but that's after the fact. By that time, it could be too late. I wish there was a way to do those drop-ins and not put a surcharge of $1 to go get a cup of coffee.
You can put in less than $1.
What's the minimum you can put in? What's the minimum you can put in?
The minimum in the parking meter.
You can put in $1 nickel.
For how much time? 12
6
minutes?
minutes.
Huh?
6 minutes.
6 minutes?
Okay, it's not as painful as I thought.
No, I put in enough for 15 minutes when I was dropping something off, and I'm out of there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to hear the comments first.
Yeah. So anyway, Tom, why don't you come on up?
Chairs are way low down there.
Yeah, I don't know who was there before, but the chair's usually not that low.
I'll leave it the way it is.
Try the other chair.
I'll leave it the way it is. I'm here already.
It looks like us sitting down there.
I know, as you can see, it's the top of our heads.
Yeah, well, I was hesitant to come here tonight. It's been 7 months since I've been in this building, so kind of a sabbatical away from all of you and all the lights. Tom Guile, Oregon City. And of course, I'm here about the parking. And I've never met Roland before, so we did not coordinate this, and what Frank said is also kind of everything I was about to say. But I really want to implore you not to change the rates down south of 7th. The Westland Oregon City Bridge divides our downtown in almost half. North of 7th is where all the restaurants are, and yes, they do want to keep people moving. South of 7th is only 2 blocks, and it's almost all retail. And it's interesting that we are the only community in this whole area that charges fees for parking to shop. Westland doesn't, Milwaukee doesn't, Canby, Gladstone. We may be the county seat, but we are not Portland, and I don't think anybody really gets confused by our rates. They got to go to a meter, they put what it says. I mean, there's no confusion about that. They just put their card or their cash in. But you know, when I first moved downtown, and it's been 10 years this fall, I was told, and I think it was Jesse, code enforcement, that the reason that they did have parking, and this is what I've explained to all my customers, was because of the courthouse, because jurors were taking up all the spots. So they did that to implement it in that area to get people to move or not to park down there. As I said earlier, the majority of the division is restaurants, retail. I went around to some of my retailers today in that area and asked them if they wouldn't mind coming tonight, but most of them were still open or they had children at home. Almost all of them, like I do, we reimburse our customers. If they'll come to our stores, we tell them we'll pay for their parking on a weekday. I'm not open very many weekdays, but yes, I'll pay for somebody, because that little bit of cost to them, having to pull out money, put a card in or whatever, to some people is a hassle, because again, we're not like the other communities. So I know one thing, tolling will take a toll on all the diverted traffic that will come down Main Street. That's going to kill my business if I even stay open. What else do I have down here? Because I put some thoughts down. It's kind of funny. I thought, what was the reason for increasing the rates in the first place? Was it to keep cars moving so they had to move every 2 hours? Because I thought this kind of reminded me of the tolling. They're putting the tolls on the freeways to get us to move or to lessen the traffic in those peak hours. Well, to try and increase rates downtown is impacting us retailers. I hardly get any business during the weekdays. I've started closing. I'm only open Friday and Saturday and Sunday now because there's just nobody. The most interesting part of this is almost all my customers, and I put it on Facebook recently, I have nobody from Oregon City, and when I ask them why, they say there's nothing down there for them. West Lynn comes over and they say, we love your downtown. But a weekend ago, I had people from California, Washington, Montana, Illinois, Arizona, and I couldn't believe it, Connecticut. But they come here to visit somebody for Easter or Mother's Day, and then they want to visit our downtown. And I sometimes feel like a tour director because I tell them about the elevator. They didn't know anything about it. I tell them about the waterfalls. But in a sense, we have more tourists downtown than we have our own citizens. And that's Rocky's doing a tour. And I think we're going to scare some of them away by changing the rates again, because it's leave it the way it is for at least those 2 blocks of retail, because it's going to kill us with everything heading our way. The courthouse moving, the north end development, and the tolling that could really kill our downtown. Thank you. Appreciate it if you really consider that.
I think Crystal would object to you calling her retail. She's a restaurant.
Say it again?
Sweet Masterpieces is a restaurant.
I went over there today, and what's her husband's name? Derek? Derek said that he reimburses his customers that come in there. They know they come in just to get their chocolates and leave. He said, so I reimburse them too.
Well, I'll have to ask them about that because they've never told me that they were going to reimburse me for my parking. So that's, that's news to me.
When somebody's coming by it's kind of like I don't charge for bags of 5 cents, because when you go to a grocery store, you know you're going to pick up something. People who walk up and down Main Street, all of a sudden casually, it's just an impromptu buy. They weren't planning on doing it. So I'll blend in my nickel for that bag for them. But again, it's mainly tourists that come down there, and I hate to see that change in those 2 blocks.
I'm not a tourist.
Pardon?
I'm not a tourist. I come down there all the time.
You're a blessed sight in Oregon City to see you walking the main streets.
I love how he's buttering me up here.
Oh, no.
Woo, it's getting deep.
Seriously, when I was on the Planning Commission for 8 years, I kept asking our citizens, why don't you come downtown? Oh, there's nothing for us. I mean, it's the same shops.
There's a lot down there.
I know. That's the message we got to get across, that Oregon City downtown has more variety. Again, thank you very much for your time. And it's good to see you all. See you in another 7 months.
Yeah, so anyway, I will have to make a correction. Milwaukee does not have meters, but they have 2-hour parking enforcement. All along their main street. It's signed for 2-hour parking. So if you're there longer, somebody's going to come along and tag your car and tell you to move. So that is not true that Milwaukee does not do enforcement. No, that's what I said. They don't have meters, but it is signed for 2-hour parking. So the other jurisdictions do. I can't speak for West Lynn. They don't have a downtown. I'm not slamming you, West Lynn, but you don't have a downtown. You've got basically shopping centers and Willamette Main Street. There is a problem with parking down there. I saw a friend of mine who owns a business down there. She was parked right in front of her own store. What can I tell you? So we've had a request to consider, well, would you like to respond to anything at all?
No, I appreciate their comments. I've spoken with both of them in the past, and where we're at today.
I guess I would, I understand people being confused, but, if I can use a parking meter in Portland, our parking meters are so easy. I don't see that. Now, like I said, when I was sitting in White Rabbit the few times when we had the old meters, I totally understood the problem, why they weren't working. They are working really well. I've used them a few times, even though I have the parking app, because I wanted to try it myself. I used 2 different types of credit cards, and there's the instructions are right there. So I'm not saying that people can't use them. Maybe they just don't want to use it. And I'm only speaking for myself, but if I want to go somewhere, a parking meter is not going to stop me from going to your business. I am going to go because it's a destination for me. So when I go, to White Rabbit, or I go to Vintage Nest, or I go to Mary Rose down there, and I can't think of the name of the other vintage place across the street, I'm purposefully going there. I know that that's where I want to be. And maybe, somebody wants to pop in for a cup of coffee. I mean, White Rabbit is not a place you pop in for a cup of coffee because you get attracted by everything else that's in there, and so then you go walking around with your cup of coffee, and it's not like Starbucks where you go in and you get your coffee and you get out. There's not a lot of retail in there for you to do anything with, but it's an experience. The shops that are down there are an experience, is what I would say. So what do you think about the idea that was proposed that we keep that 2 block as 50 cents and then up it in the other portion? I definitely see the part, on 12th up to 14th, that makes no sense to me.
The whole reason that this topic is before us is to be consistent.
Well, I understand.
So,
well,
that's why we're doing it.
We had a request, so I'm just saying that's an option.
Well, now that I'm educated and I know you can put in as little as a nickel, it kind of changes my perspective on things. If it was always a minimum charge of $1, I would have been.
No, it's never been that way, even under the old funky meters. Portland has a minimum. Minimum is like a quarter. You put a minimum of a quarter in there.
I've traveled the United States a lot, and everywhere I went, I've had to plug a meter. So I'm fine with it.
For me, this isn't about making something more or less expensive. It's about making it simpler, and it's about making it all consistent. And I hear the concerns about it possibly being a deterrent, but I also hear just as much, if not more, that people don't want to go downtown because they don't think they can find parking. So there are many different things that could be contributing to the issues of if someone doesn't want to go downtown for certain perceptions that they may be having. And also just acknowledging, again, Oregon City is unique in so many ways, and our downtown is not immune from that. The geographical constraints that we have there that prevent us from really going anywhere else from where we are now makes it a bit of a different picture, I think, than if we were talking about a different city. And so I'm fine with it as presented as well.
And let us not forget that at some point the south end is going to change too with the development by the Grand Ronde and whatever parking they provide. So I think it's a fluid situation. I think we need to monitor it over the next few years.
You're coming, Mike.
Do whatever.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to see it be consistent. I just want to say that I don't want us to drop an idea that Commissioner O'Donnell brought up, and that's the idea of businesses being able to pay for an hour. I would love to see Downtown Oregon City Association and our Economic Development Department work together on some sort of, that would, to me, would be a good use of economic development funds to provide, and if it's good the next time they come downtown, that's all of the better. That encourages people to come back downtown again. So I would think that downtown merchants would love to have something like that they could give their customer that, hey, next time you come downtown, this will pay for your first hour or whatever. So I hope we don't drop that idea. Half of it, fine, whatever. That the details can be worked out, but I hope we don't drop that idea because I think that could help make the parking a little more palatable. So make the parking a little more palatable and encourage additional trips downtown.
Well, I can tell you and I'm not being facetious about it. I had a constituent call me wanting to know that if the tolls go in, why don't we put a toll on either end of the Oregon City Westland Bridge and, collect some money there. And I said, oh, yeah, I could see that backing up.
On the bridge.
Yeah, I could see that backing up all over the place. That would be, that would be a nightmare, I think. So I said, oh, well, thank you so much for that lovely suggestion. Do we have a motion or anything else we want to add to this? I can't make one, otherwise I would make the motion. I can't make the motion.
I'll move to approve the $1 per hour fee as presented.
Oh, you want to move to approve Resolution 2307?
Sorry, I don't have the number.
I know, that's why I was repeating it. I figured you didn't have it in front of you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Mitchell's moving to approve Resolution 2307, adopting new parking meter fees in downtown. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we have the roll, please?
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Yes.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion
and again,
passes.
we're talking about consistency with the fees. So we will revisit this. So let's just make a note in our mental calendars that we're going to probably revisit this in about, let's just say come back in another year and let's see how we're doing with this. And I'm going to start hanging out at White Rabbit some more
And we have plans to bring back just some more things late this summer for the parking study so we can include the feedback.
Okay, awesome. Yes, so we need a 5-minute break here, so we'll come back at 8:46. Roland and Danielle, yeah.
So we are live.
Okay, we're back. Let's move on to item 9B, first reading of ordinance number 231004, 2022-23 street tree minor code amendment. And we have talked about this quite a bit.
You have. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I do have a short presentation, but if you feel like you have everything you need, we can skip that. I'll leave that up to you.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen? Mike, are you familiar enough with this that you want the presentation or not?
I don't think I need the presentation.
Donald?
Well, you know, I was absent because of illness last time, but I don't want to see the presentation either. I know this will run afoul of you, but it seems like that's whatever it is, $400 seems like a lot of money to me. And I believe that's the position Mr. Mitchell had, but I don't need to see the presentation.
You mean talking about the fee in lieu?
Yeah, fee in lieu.
Well, we want to encourage them to plant the tree.
Well, some people won't.
You can get one for $35, so cheap. Want to see the presentation?
No, I'm fine. And I'll state that I also do, when we have these conversations about people's private property, I do have a hard time, I just have a hard time with us saying how we're going to tell them how to do that. But I do think that we've put in a lot of work in this, and so I'm happy to see it go past its first reading.
And I agree with Commissioner Marl.
Well, it wasn't involving putting a tree in their yard, it was just the parking strip trees. That's what we were talking about. So, is there a motion?
Move to approve first reading of ordinance 23-1004.
I'll second.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell. Oh, sorry.
Just to read it, remember?
Ordinance number 231004, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City amending Oregon City Municipal Code, Chapter 1208, Public and Street Trees, and Chapter 12.32, Heritage Trees.
Roll call, please, Mr. Wiley.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Carries. So we'll have second reading for next time.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay,
May
perfect.
3rd.
And now let's welcome to the podium John Lewis. We have the next item here. Actually, John, if you want to hold off, we're going to not do number C. We're going to go back to item 7A and 7E. So let's do the tree first because hopefully it'll be simpler. I think that's Mr. Reed. Removal of the heritage tree designation for dead Australian pine tree at the swimming pool. I'm assuming this is pretty cut and dry, and we're going to take it out. So, did this go to the Heritage, not Heritage, our Natural Resources Committee first?
Yes.
I didn't see anything in the staff reports that said they reviewed it.
They did review it, and the recommendation was to plant, an Austrian pine.
Okay. Well, that was my only question. I didn't see that they had, because it sounded like you were going to us and then going to go to them, and I thought that's kind of confusing. Okay, I'm good.
All right.
Anybody else have any questions about this?
No, cut and dry.
Remove and replant. Is there a motion?
Move to approve item 7E on tonight's agenda, removal of heritage tree designation.
Second. Roll call.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Do we know yet what we're going to replant in its place?
The recommendation was
Okay, awesome. All right, now let's go to 7A, which is Resolution 2306, adoption of street design standards. And I will say before you start, I was at Career Day at middle school, and I took a copy of the street design standards to talk to the students about. This is one of the things that as a planner, you have to know about. You don't have to memorize the street design standards, but you have to know where to look up the information. So I took my book with me as a show and tell item.
That's good to hear. That's good
I
to
want
hear.
some points for that.
At which time 15 of them decide to be podiatrists.
I don't think we had a podiatrist there today. Anyway, go ahead, John.
Well, this was on the consent agenda. I'm not super prepared to go through a presentation. I don't have one for that, but I can answer questions. I did hear that there was concern about the street lighting section, so if that's what we're talking about, and maybe I'll back up, because there were several clarifications that we heard from you, or additional text items that were wanted in this item. I've since lost it in my agenda here, but we've addressed those items, and so there was kind of a summary of those listed in a memo that was produced by probably Josh. It was Julia Knudsen from Kittleson and Associates. So there's several items that we talked about the last meeting that and at the end of that, we thought, well, with those changes in place and the red lines associated with it, that would be clearer. So I'm not sure if there's something specific to that or if there's something different.
It was the issue we talked about the inconsistency of the style of lighting. So I'll turn that over to Commissioner Smith.
The reason that this has been an issue is, and I can't remember, I think when Malala Avenue was redone, and I mean the lower part of Malala Avenue, when the not the bulb outs, but originally the curbs and the center islands were put in. That was our first real effort in making after 7th Street, right? 7th Street was redone, very specific lighting chosen for 7th Street, which is now placed all over the city, which Commissioner McGriff brought up last time. Those lights on 7th Street were never to be used anywhere else in the city. I don't know how they were now applied to Prairie Schooner and applied to 99E and all that. That was never the point of those lights. Those lights on 7th Street were only for 7th Street. They were designed they were chosen to look similar to the arc lights. It was very specific for 7th Street. And so adding those throughout the rest of the city defeated the whole point of putting those up 7th Street. The other thing is when we did Malala Avenue, the first phase, the implication was when we did Malala Avenue up in Beaver Creek to 213, it was going to look the same, and the lights were going to look the same. I even asked specifically about that in multiple meetings, and yet those lights are completely different. So now we've narrowed it down to 4 light set types, one with Holcomb, which is very clearly was specific to Holcomb. Those lights were designed specifically to fit that area because of the Oregon Trail. The 7th Street lights were just fit 7th Street. The downtown lights, which, had a reason for being that way. And then the assumption was essentially the lights going up Malala were all going to be the same. So now we have something, at least on paper, that shows there's 4 versions of lights. The problem is, I'm assuming that this only applies to when we do a new section. Oh, we're going to go with these lights. Or that when this light goes out, we're going to replace these lights. That doesn't account for the fact that there's another 4 different styles in all of these areas. There's a total, I drove around today to every street to look at this. There is, at least by my count, 8 different acorn lights. 6 different acorn lights throughout the city, okay? That I've given my own name, and I've drawn them all. My question is, there's some areas that this doesn't address. I'm going to make the assumption, which I should never make the assumption, because that's why we get here, that the downtown district applies to all of Main Street, all of the side streets. It must apply to what I'm referring to as Home Depot Street. It must apply to what I assume would be 11th Street, 12th Street. Is everything below the bluff considered the downtown district? Because if not, then this is missing key elements. If you go to Home Depot, and I'm not talking Washington Street Home Depot, I'm talking about what I'm calling Home Depot Street, which is the road that goes into the dump and into Home Depot. All of those are a completely different set of lights. Those are acorn lights. They're solid glass or solid, clear, material. Then you have John Q. Adams Street, which is the block of the library. There are 3 different lights in the library park. 3 different street lights in just one block. At the bottom of Singer Hill, there's 2 completely different lights on each corner. They're not even the same design. They're not even the same height. So is there a phasing of replacing these lights over time? Or is it just that when it burns out, we replace one, and so that we never actually get to a place in the history of this city where the lights all match? Because I just don't see that. The corner at 9090 at the mill, there's only 6 streetlights. You know where the truck went off there? Mm-hmm. There's 6 streetlights on that corner, and they're 4 different designs. 4 completely different lights, and one of them is the brand new Malala Avenue lights that are down on 9090. How is that happening? I'm assuming that this is supposed to stop that, but yet these small acorn lights that we've been replacing, they are outnumbered by a whole different style on Main Street. So are we actually going to replace every light on Main Street to these new small acorn lights the way that this says? Because the other lights far outnumber that, the other style. That's not even on this list too.
Where's the ones that look like the colonial? That one on the end there.
That's Holcomb. There's areas that, Holcomb's fine. It's all consistent. I just don't understand why half of Malala is going to be one way and half of Malala is the other way. And we've broken Malala into 3 sections. The one section is all the small acorn lights, which look like we've done a pretty good job, although there's still, by Eastham School and Dutch Bros, there's still 10 of the old style clear white lights, still old style in one block on Dewey Street and all this. Then you have a segment between Hilda and Holmes, between Holmes and Hilda and Beaver Creek, where we have nothing. That's the middle of Malala that hasn't been redone yet, right? So we have the upper Malala that's been redone with these new lights, lower Malala that's been redone mostly with the acorn lights, and then the center of Malala, which really hasn't been done except for Bank of the West, which had to redo that block, a county building that had to do their block, and those are all different lights too. The urgent care light has been changed, but in that block that now says they're also going to be the king acorn, there's not one king acorn on that entire section at this point. So what does this really mean? It means we're going to get to it at some point, or is there a timeline for changing these lights out?
Thank you. That was a lot. And I won't disagree with you. Since we've had this conversation, I drive around, I saw those 4 lights on 99E. The new light that ODOT put in, ODOT supplied the wrong light. So we've got a call to them, but there's still 3 different lights on that corner that are city lights. And yeah, there's lots of diversity over the course of the city. The intention, based on the feedback that we've been hearing on this topic, would be to replace all the lights on a schedule that we could handle. Now, my intention, that's a costly endeavor. So one of the asks in the Budget Committee meeting is for Public Works is going to be, do we want to address these lights over a 3-year schedule? It's a couple of $100,000 worth of investment. Do we want to take that on and make all those changes that really have happened over 30 years of lights, right? Light technology, light standards, staff that directed the wrong lights. We've got some decorative lights up in the Holcomb neighborhood that I'm not even quite sure how they got there. They're PGE lights, but they're different than the Town and Country style that are on Holcomb Boulevard. They're just in a back neighborhood near Ames Street. I can't defend all those. But I do want to say something about the what we call the teardrop style, the stuff that was on 7th Street. I was here, but I wasn't part of the community conversation when they put those in on Washington Street near Prairie Schooner. But I want to believe there was a community process that happened there. Nancy Crushauer was the Public Works Director at the time.
No, there was not.
Well,
There was
I don't
not.
know. I'm just saying I wasn't part of that. But the idea with those taller, they're much taller, and they actually reach further. So to try to illuminate a boulevard like Washington Street or Prairie Schooner with the acorn-style lights and get the illumination that you need, I'm sure that was the reason why the teardrop was there, and the intention would be to continue that. But you're right, on Home Depot, on private property, for instance, the library, the Home Depot driveway, that's not a public road, by the way.
I didn't know.
And so when, those lights were called for back when Home Depot was developed, which is 30 years now? I don't know, 25 years?
It's not quite.
It's been a long time ago. Yeah. That's when those were developed. And even if we put together a program that said we will replace these in 30 years, we'd have to answer the question, are we going to do that on Home Depot's private drive as well? And maybe the right time to do that is if and when there's a development that happens up on the landfill site. But I agree, there's a lot. In order to do them, we'd like to. I mean, we've overspent our streetlight budget this year by far, and some of that's got to do with all the all the accidents that have happened and vehicles hitting streetlights. Yeah. But yeah, there's a variety of reasons. It's hard to defend this. We're trying to get to a standard for moving forward, but also following that same standard for anything that we replace.
But Sean, I get all that. What I don't get is, I'm almost positive, and I won't say 100% sure, but I know that we started changing over to these small acorn lights. When we started changing over those small acorn lights, was that anywhere near the time that we were doing Malala Avenue up at the top?
So,
how did we get to those lights on Malala Avenue that didn't exist and don't match anything in the city?
Because
when we already have a section of Malala that was planned, and we knew that Malala was going to come in phases, and we've talked about this for decades, that they were going to match.
So,
how does that happen?
So Malala Avenue, when it was designed, and that's, 15 years ago.
Are you talking about the lower part?
The lower part of Malala Avenue. Those were all designed as high-pressure sodium glasses. They allowed for a globe that didn't need the dark sky element to it. They were open and then they were big.
Erase that, though. What I'm talking about, the new ones that we're doing now, the small acorn lights.
Right.
That's not 15 years ago. That's recent.
You're talking about this,
right?
Right.
So what I'm saying is, why did we choose two brand new sets of lights, small acorn and king acorn, instead of making sure that as we replaced lower Malala, that they matched upper Malala? That seems so simple.
There's lots of good reasons for what I think you're asking me about is the new section of Malala that we just completed between Beaver Creek and 213. We had to pick a different style light because the lighting standard we couldn't meet in our design of that section of Malala Avenue because we had all these existing driveways. So we needed a bulb, we needed a light type that would broadcast a wider light, a wider broadcast. So we could use those, still follow that acorn style to the closest that we could, but it was a style bulb type that would allow for further spacing between lights because we couldn't get the narrower spacing to fit with the existing driveways. So that's when we chose the King light type. And on the other end of Malala that was already built, the section really between Holmes Lane and 7th Street or Division Street, those, there was an accepted standard at the time for the spacing on those. If you ask me, they're super close together. There's a lot of street lights along that section, but those were high pressure sodium lights. So when we made the decision to go to LED lights and try to meet the dark sky standard, we went with the type that has the LEDs that shine down with the cap on top. And so, we've got a mixture of those, but those are the decisions that's how we got to the decisions for Malala Avenue.
So then if we go back to middle Malala Avenue,
right,
We've already started replacing lights in that section, and we're not replacing them with the lights that it says here. We're replacing them with the small acorn lights when it says here that that section's supposed to match Upper Molalla. And yet there's not one light in that middle section that matches.
The intention is,
So we've been replacing lights within this last year that don't even fit this.
I'll have to look. But our street,
So
our
I guess
street
what I'm saying,
department,
I'm voting no on this. I'm voting no on it because it's simple as this. No matter how much we talk about design standards, we're not following them. And I get that that's getting closer, but I spent 2 hours just on this, and that's not even the rest of it. That's just the basic lights. So there's no way I can support it until we figure out what we're doing and we actually have a design standard that matches and makes sense. So I don't need to talk about it anymore. I don't want to waste anyone else's time.
Frank?
so thank you.
If you don't, that's fine.
I understand that. I guess what I'd like to fix these lights as well. Do we have support for, and we can again talk more about this at the budget committee meeting,
Okay.
but is there a commission support to fund standardizing our lights to these 4 types in the right places? Because that's what I feel like needs to happen, because we're spent out. We spent out our streetlight budget at the beginning of the year because we're trying to fix these as quickly as we can, but we just have a small.
Well, I think being proactive and planning before we do these makes more sense, and having that dialogue before we implement it. If there was a dialogue about the fact that the Molalla Avenue lights couldn't match the existing lights because of some reason, that was never brought up any time I asked that question, or any citizen ever asked that question in the whole process. That was never brought up. The assumption was the lights would match. So I'm over it. But here's the thing, this doesn't address city parking lots. So we have, if you go to Coasters Crossing, I don't think street standards apply to the parking lots, but all the lights in Coasters Crossing parking lot are different. If you look at the lights in our city parking lot downtown, all of those lights are different. If you look in, like I said, Carnegie Park, some of them match the street, and yet in the park themselves, there's 3 different styles of lights. That is just unbelievable to me.
The good news about both those lots is those are, while they're private, they're city-owned lots. So the Coasters Crossing, for instance, yes, that's another area where we'd love to prioritize, but there's a lot of lights in there. So based on the unit cost of that, we don't have the budget for that. But we can.
It's a lower priority is what I.
There is. We're trying to prioritize these, but it's not going to be quick enough unless we do it in a 1, 2, or 3 year kind of, time frame, which I sense we would support if we, I want to verify if we've called out the locations differently than what we've been implementing, then okay, but I'm not 100% certain on that.
I think you could put that in there. I guess I want to go back to the statement that Rocky made. I don't expect to see the arc lights anywhere else except on 7th Street. They were, again, specifically for the historic district. They don't match where they are now, and I don't want to see any more of those go anywhere else in Oregon City unless it's in a neighborhood that's historic, because that's how again, you were on the periphery of the project, I remember, because we were working on it, but that light doesn't belong everywhere. It was that neighborhood, and we picked those out with the approval of the city. You guys gave us a choice and said, yeah, those look a lot like arc lights. So where they are in other parts of the city that are not historic, to me, they look completely out of place. They really do.
They're really 3 places. They're on Molalla.
Prairie Schooner.
They're on Prairie Schooner.
Yeah, Prairie Schooner is not a historic neighborhood.
And they're on 99E, which is not our facility. It's a ODOT facility. But again, we wanted decorative lights. The only decorative light that meets the standard for a wide boulevard like that is going to be those tall Cobra head downlight kind of lights.
But there's other styles that could have been used there. Instead, staff made a decision to match lights that shouldn't have been matched. That's my point. So unless we have this documented to saying these go to this neighborhood, because right now saying downtown district, to me, that says you're now including 99E and you're including Washington Street. This needs to be more specific. There's more districts and more streets that this doesn't account for.
Can you refine that table 9-5?
Sounds like we need a map.
To
We'd
be
like
more
a map.
to be more specific about where they're going to go, so we don't end up with this inconsistency?
Yes, we can provide you a map.
So is there a way that we can
specifically-
adopt this and just have that part come back, because we need to look at it? Because I want to get the rest of it
not for
moving.
The
rest of it's fine. That was the only concern I had. I just, again, I'm driving around like I didn't do all the work you did, but I've noticed the same thing, and I thought, well, why are those lights there on Prairie Schooner, which, anyway, so that's what I would support adopting this, but table 9-5 needs to come back, and table 9-6 needs to go with it to be very specific about where these are going to go.
Well, I don't mind bringing it back again if you want to not vote on this tonight. I'd like to put it on the consent agenda again with the right graphic.
I would prefer it just come back with updated information.
Okay, all right, I'll support that then. I was ready to just, because I've read all the other stuff, so it's fine. All right, let's do that. Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
Just as a practical matter, having been in that business, unless, especially when you're talking about acorn style lights, which are more decorative, unless we have a really aggressive time frame, it's entirely possible that we start out with a particular light and 2 or 3 years from now, we can't get it anymore.
Right, adding more styles only complicates it. We should be minimizing the amount of styles, not adding more.
Agreed. The other thing that Mr. Lewis said that is true, different lighting standards have changed. There have been more changes in the lighting industry in the last 10 years than the last 100 years. And as the standards change in terms of recommended spacing and foot candles that you get on the ground, there are places where the spacing based on what's already there, a particular style might not work because you can't get the spacing you need or you can't get the foot candle intensity on the ground. So I agree completely with what Commissioner Smith is saying, but unfortunately the reality, it's not going to be quite that simple in some cases just because of the way lighting operates.
Okay, so it looks like it's going to come back and we're going to have this updated. So, all right, let's talk about our next favorite topic. Item C, I-205 Toll Project Environmental Assessment Discussion. And I've been just quickly reading this lovely little article. So we are working with communities now to design a tolling approach that also increases the safety and multimodal access of local streets. If we find a local road or intersection that is negatively impacted by the adoption of tolling, we will construct improvements that address these effects. So says Director Strickler.
I haven't read that article, but I've heard that same message. So part of the problem for us is our streets and intersections don't lend themselves to, so it's kind of an easy position for the state to take because there's not a lot that they can do in Oregon City so that they, to deal with the issues. So, making a commitment to fixing something that can't be fixed unless they're proposing to take out buildings or acquire more right-of-way. The reality of that is they're not. And they're also not talking to you about, or not talking about the fact that they already have indicated that, because there's existing congestion that, the city should, pay its portion of those projects as well. So their commitment to how much of that project they're paying for is a pretty huge question right now. So
pretty waffly.
Yeah. So in your packet is a few things, and we sent out by way of, or Jacob did, thank you, Jacob, sent out the policy worksheet from Clackamas County and their letter. And I guess I would just say our letter was just because of timing of this meeting, we had to get that out before the county letter. But we've been working pretty hand in hand with the county. We've been working pretty hand in hand with Carrie and Bill And we've been working with our own consultant, DKS and Associates, to kind of analyze this information, and we've been doing that for months. And so this letter is kind of a culmination of the things that we thought were important. It includes not only the letter, but a log sheet and then the DKS memo. And we're suggesting that we also amend our letter before we send it out. It's due on the 21st, so we've got to get it in the mail in the next couple days. So we'd like to reference the county's letter so that if, you know, their letter was 36 pages or something like that, pretty long.
33.
You know, I read through most of it in summary. I didn't go deep into it, but you know, good letter, good amount of work. We've been meeting with them, so it has been a collaboration, but they've hired a really strong analysis team that's familiar with NEPA and the NEPA process and the environmental assessment process. And their conclusions aren't much different than ours, which is really the state has made some claims in their environmental assessment that just don't match the reality with regard to how they've monitored, whether there's really going to be diversion or not, all those kinds of things. So
I'm just shocked, John, just completely shocked by that statement. That
yeah, so I'm not sure if you want to talk. We did hear from the TAC about one little typo in here about where we called, well, we didn't really name the bridge, but we just indicated that the Highway 43 bridge was a non-ODOT controlled bridge, when in fact it is. But we know of that little problem. I don't know if you have other.
did you refer to it as the Arch Bridge? Because that was what I wrote in my little note.
Yeah, we can do that. I didn't refer to it as the Arch Bridge, but I just what will become the only non-ODOT controlled bridge, non-tolled bridge, not.
Yeah, not tolled, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
but we can wordsmith that.
Yeah. Mike, did you have a comment before I go to the others?
No, I have nothing to add. I think it's a tremendous piece of work by our staff. And thank you to everyone who was involved. Once everybody's had their things to say, I would like to make one other comment later on.
Do it now.
Well, it's not appropriate exactly right now.
Okay, all right, I thought it was all told. Okay. Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you. And again, thank you to staff for working on this. I've had a lot of good conversations with them before I've been heading into my committees relating to this. And so they've been an excellent resource for me. And this letter is just this is the end point of a lot of work that's been done by our staff. Again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of things that have taken them away from their normal duties. And so I just want to reiterate again that the big thing right now is trying to get them to go back and do an EIS rather than an EA, which will provide us with the information that better reflects what we believe is going to happen when implemented, specifically, again, for me, relating to the economic impacts. I do just have a quick, I believe I have the most recent version, but a few typos that I just wanted to point out. We use the word appendixes and we also use the word appendices.
Yes,
so let's just let's just use appendices. And then also a couple times when we refer to the RMPP,
it's page 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then a couple times when we refer to the RMPP, we actually call it the RMMP, and that's on page 3.
Yeah.
So let's fix that back to RMPP. And so those are what I currently have, but apart from that, I really appreciate this.
Rocky, you have anything? No. Frank?
Nothing I can say that wouldn't be a restatement of things that are already going to be said and have been said. So, no.
I would agree. The other thing is that when in talking to our communications manager, I have emphasized in my discussions that there are people that think that this is an Oregon City project because maybe the word Oregon is in the title. So I've been very clear in my communications with the media that this is not the city of Oregon City. This is the Oregon Department of Transportation We are not, as a city, imposing tolls on a freeway because we don't have any authority to do that. I thought, again, as I've been telling people, and again, I appreciate the time that we've spent on this. It may not seem like it's worth it, but this is basically, for us, it's life or death. The time that we are spending is going to pay off. It just doesn't seem like it at the moment, but this is a matter of urgency for our community. And I know that maybe we might have a pothole here or a pothole there, but I think based on the community survey where we had people talking about tolling, there was another report in the Tribune last week that said, this is from April 9th, it says the Tribune conducted an unscientific survey to find out what readers think of proposed tolling, and they had 333 readers across 62 zip codes. Nobody supports it. We had an open house here in Oregon City with ODOT, and there wasn't anybody there in support of tolling. So, you know, they're hearing the same message over and over again, and I have an email ready to go to Representative McLean, and I appreciate her wanting to outreach and to chat about this, but she's not interested in changing her mind or considering something because she thinks tolling is the greatest thing since sliced toast. But I appreciate the letter, and I would be happy to sign this, but I have one suggestion for a change. So if you use Shrunken White, which is the manual on how you set up a letter, you never put the CCs on the front page. It's after the signature on the back. So that's the only change I would, besides the typos. I would recommend you put the CCs at the end, which is where they're supposed to go, and it's 2 little tiny Cs. And it's hard because your thing wants to make 2 caps of Cs, but that's where the CCs go. We know that this is going to go to all these people. So after my name and my title, there would be CC, and it would go to Chris and Keith and Brendan. So
You can make that change.
and that's the only sort of substantive letter change that I would recommend. Otherwise, I would suggest that we make a motion to approve this and have it for signature so it can go out.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And you want to say one more thing?
Let's handle the motion first.
Okay, all right. Let's have the motion. I just don't want you to think I forgot you. Okay, so on the motion.
And just to confirm, that was Adams' second, or Commissioner Morrow?
Yes. Yep. Commissioner Morrow seconded, Commissioner Smith moved.
All right. Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye.
Motion
And
passes.
let the record show that this was unanimous. And you can either have me sign it, or you can use my electronic signature, whichever you think would be nicer.
Okay. We need it signed tomorrow.
I will be happy to sign tomorrow.
Okay. You'll be around?
I will be around.
Okay.
Okay. Mike?
Not to say that I'm in favor of any tolling, but I think that we would all agree that the more concerning proposal is tolling of the Abernathy Bridge section before the other RMPP. And I think in the first bullet point in the letter, staff has given us a great legal argument as to why ODOT does not have the authority to do that. And I would like to have us very soon, I don't know if tonight's the time, discuss getting our Westland and other city partners, hopefully, and filing suit against ODOT to stop that segment tolling. I think they've proven that they're not going to listen to our concerns. They're not going to listen to what that segment tolling would do to our downtown and to Westland's downtown. And I think at this point, our only option is to sue them.
Definitely have discussed that, and I am willing to go there, but I want to make sure that we exhaust all of our administrative remedies, because if there's nothing else I remember from law school, you want to exhaust all your administrative remedies before you go to the final hammer. So my suggestion was, we talked about this informally, that if we get there, that we use the term notice of intent to. But I know that in discussions with the other mayors in the cities, we finally got Tualatin on board because they realized this is going to affect them. I haven't had a chance to talk further with Canby because they've got some other kerfuffles going on with their city, and this is not the right time. But we do have a majority of the mayors, our delegation, our state representatives, and our senators have been meeting. They had a meeting today where they're pressing hard to the hoop to get a hearing on this. So they were going to meet with Senator Wagner, who is from our area, from Lake Oswego. So stay tuned, but let's just put that in our back pocket so that we go through the process, we go through everything that we need to go through. And I think our legal counsel would recommend the same thing. Let's keep participating. Let's file our objections. Let's make our statements. Let's be on the record. So we're consistently on the record. And that's going to help us in the long term. And that's just my unofficial, not legal opinion.
Well, my official opinion is I agree with Commissioner Mitchell, and I say do it right as soon as you can. Get their attention, because they're not listening to anything else. So I'm all for these other remedies you propose, but meantime, they continue to just roll right over us. So I'm in support of immediate action. If he thinks we have a strong legal leg to stand on that one point, on that one piece of the project, then do it.
Yeah.
I've been advocating suing these people for
I know.
since the beginning, and I've been told that it won't be, but this could be successful. And
Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. I just wanted to provide a clarification that I know we all feel that ODOT, well, no, we don't feel, we do know that ODOT has basically been steamrolling us in this process. And I just wanted to clarify that even though this letter is addressed to Mandy Putney and the Urban Mobility Office, this is as much for the FHWA as it is for ODOT, because in the end, they're the ones who have to give the green light at the federal level for this to move forward. And the reason why we're sending this letter, I know that there are a lot of people who feel that submitting comments is useless because it hasn't really produced any substantive changes thus far. The reason why this one is so crucial is because it's at the federal level, and again, insisting that there's more consistency, more transparency with our localities is why I would support this moving ahead first. But again, I that's always something that I want to keep as an option as well.
Yeah, it's in our back pocket. We're definitely going to consider it, and I've told people that it is an option, but we're gonna go through the process to do what we need to do, and that's what we need to do. So anyway, do you have any communications?
well, if we surveyed the commission, you have two that want to wait to do the legal action, correct? We have two that want to take legal action.
Well, I think we all want to do it, but it's a matter of timing, and I would definitely say that we should have a discussion in an executive session with our legal counsel about that particular topic.
Commissioner Morrow.
When? Yeah.
So for me, the comment period is over in 2 days.
Yes.
So
next week.
So I don't think that I wouldn't have a problem with our staff looking at the possibility right now, just given that the comment period that I was alluding to being so important for us to get our voice in is ending in 2 days. So if I would actually like for our staff to start looking into that with the understanding that no concrete action is going to be taken for a while, and there's probably going to be more information coming once this comment deadline passes.
And once we get responses back from FHWA. So I think you've got a consensus that we all want to take a look at that. I think,
If I could,
I know I'm not a big speed bump, but I'm trying to be a speed bump in this, and, whatever I have to do.
well, this commission's been,
Consistent.
on this topic, you've been very clear about that message and wanting us to be serious about thinking about how to take action beyond comment letters, right? So with that, we worked with Bill and Carrie to work with the county's special legal team. They've brought on a special legal team, and we've been meeting weekly for the last couple, every Friday morning, and those are still on the calendar. So the county's letter, as well as our letter, was written with the thought that we needed to make sure our legal standing was pretty strong on this, so that when that time is right, I agree, we got to, I guess we still hold out hope that maybe the federal players in this will agree with our position. I don't know, but if they don't, then I think the county as well as the city, we've signed an agreement to kind of share the resources on that end so that we're speaking with one voice, and we would bring that to you at the right time. But you've been very clear about that. I just want to I appreciate it because it's made that part of our job a little bit easier.
We have support from West Lynn. We have our neighboring communities, the letters that the mayors have signed, and we'll be having another, I think I have an OMA meeting coming up in the next 3 to 4 days. So it is a topic. It is one of the topics that they are discussing, and I think we've all been very clear. And I will say that the OMA group is a little more, Metropolitan Mayors Group is a little more militant than the OMA, but, we can maybe get the Oregon Mayors Association on board, but the Metropolitan Mayors, all the mayors in the Tri-County, we're kind of all united about this, even though we have some people over in the Hillsborough area saying, oh, this doesn't affect us, but it does. It will affect them, so. All right.
I have one comment and one question. My comment is hope has never been a plan anywhere. My question is, are we going to explore Mr. Mitchell's suggestion?
We said yes.
I want to make sure that I understood it.
Staff understood, yes. We had nodding heads. We all agreed that's where we're going to go.
I didn't see the nodding. I just guess I should have looked to the left.
You should have looked to the left. There was nodding heads this way. And Mr. Mitchell's head was nodding.
I didn't hear any rattling or anything.
No,
so I didn't
because
look.
it's all solid. It's all solid down there. All right. Any communications?
Yes, thank you. Just one question. So you may recall one of the priorities of the commission was to begin in the city-sponsored events process. So that process was advertised. We received 4 applications. The question is, we have, our next meeting is May 3rd. Would the commission be willing to start that meeting at 5:30 to review the 4 applications and make a funding decision on those? Otherwise, we need to find a different date. We think it's going to take a little bit of time. We could potentially do the May 9th work session, kind of move some things around. Just trying to get, an idea of your comfort level of utilizing either the time before a regular meeting or a work session. Otherwise, we're looking at setting a non-regular meeting date of May 23rd or May 30th, just looking at the calendar of meetings everyone's obligated to and the budget process we're going through. So just love a little, if you're comfortable on May 3rd, our next regular meeting starting at 5:30 to review those applications or utilize, a good portion of the May 9th work session.
Yeah, I can do that.
Do which?
Early.
Go early, 5:30 on May 3rd, give ourselves enough time.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Mike's got a thumb up. So
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Yeah, okay. Any communications from the commissioners?
No.
I have none. We will adjourn to executive session.
Thank you.